Everybody, welcome to What the Flick. I'm Matt, that's Alonso, that's Meredith, and that is Bibbs. Today we're talking about The Defenders.
Yes,
Woo!
episode 6.
Yes.
Ashes.
And we changed clothes.
We did.
Woo! Oh my God. Yeah, this is actually the same day. We just only had one change of clothes outside of this.
We were being judicious about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we opened with Alexandra's Victrola, which immediately to me led the question, if you're immortal, how much of your shit do you lug around? I mean,
you have the
come
same
on.
stuff. She probably has warehouses like Citizen Kane.
I guess. When do you do that thing of like, this isn't giving me joy anymore?
I like imagining when she was like, like a dictator or some kind of like conquering warrior in like the Macedonian era, whenever the hell she was around, and she just had a big pile of gold, like Uncle Scrooge's money box, and she's just been dragging that around, and that's where all this money's coming from, is her big room of gold.
Also, I bet she donates a lot to museums, and that's why she's super
that's
connected and
true.
gets all these,
Philanthropy lady. You're right.
Can anyone tell me what the hell that scene was about? Because is she like, I'm like a broken record? Like, is there a metaphor?
No, I think it's just really ham-fisted foreshadowing for like
things don't last forever. Not even the beautiful things.
That's kind of weak.
And in case anyone's wondering, that is, I looked it up, it's Brahms' Tragic Overture, Opus 81.
Subtle Defenders.
Thank you.
Very subtle.
Can we get the Kerschel number? Okay, so this is where we learn that the whole key thing is not a metaphor. They really physically need the Iron Fist to get through this wall.
And everyone turns on Danny like it's a zombie movie and he's just been bitten. Like he's just like, no, it's okay. I'm not going to do anything. I'm not going to open it. I'm just like, we literally don't trust you. There is nothing you haven't screwed up. You need to just not go anywhere until this is all over.
Which is a fair assessment given how much Danny has constantly screwed up. Though I do want to make a quick little nod that so this beautiful like let's go take to the sewers. We totally have Stick as Shredder and our Master Splinter, and like we've got our 4 Ninja Turtles because Ninja Turtles was a spoof of Daredevil. So I just want to say like it was very nice.
Yeah,
that's
very
nice. Full circle.
That's
Nice.
the Foot Clan versus the Hand.
Indeed, the Ninja Turtles were allegedly made from the same ooze that gave Matt his powers. If you didn't know that.
Oh, that's right. That's right. I forgot about that. Yes. Okay.
So there's a couple moments in that scene though that I thought were good about the way they were writing the characters. When they're talking about when Danny says he doesn't believe that he's the key, and Matt says it doesn't matter if it's true or not, they believe it's true, and that's the lawyer talking, right? Like that's consistent, I think, with his character. And then when Danny gets all pissed off, he seems unreasonable because they want to hide him out, which is not a bad idea, and he is an idiot about it.
Yes.
Which again is kind of consistent with Danny continuing to be an idiot.
He never grows. He never learns.
Right. He never learns. Like what I realized is. And I thought that there's this interesting moment that we see we see a little bit of this later, and I know we talked about we don't want to advance things, but the dynamic that I think we see in the comics typically between Iron Fist and Luke Cage, formerly Power Man, is that Luke's the hothead and Danny's more zen, and it's kind of the opposite here, right? Danny's just completely going off half-cocked all the time. Right? Yeah. And it looks like, whoa, just calm down.
Take a chill.
I think it's important that they did that too, for many reasons. But given when Power Man and Iron Fist, I just call it Power Fist, came out, it was the 70s, and the trope of the angry, hot-headed black man is something that we need to shelve.
Right.
So I think that was very intentional, I believe, on Marvel's part.
And they were both kind of playing off archetypes that are in popular culture at the time. Luke Cage was playing off of more of a Shaft kind of hero mentality, and Iron Fist was playing off more of a Bruce Lee mentality.
The white man who adopts.
Well, I guess it is more Kung Fu, the legend continues. Or I guess the legend starts.
The original series.
The original Kung Fu.
But it is nice though. But I did like the little nod that even Danny was like, oh, it's Luke Cage and the Iron Fist. I'm like, oh, that's such a nice little I see you. But he was just way. Well, he was in character, but that whole scene I felt played out way too. It just seemed forced. It just was so forced.
Danny is the only character right then who is like extremely emotionally invested in it. But he's emotionally invested because he's making it all about him. Which, granted, he's literally just been told it's all about him, but instead of being,
but he's not seeing the bigger picture.
He's not seeing the bigger picture. He's saying like, oh, it's all about me, therefore I need to go off and fight it because I'm the hero. And like, no, it's all about you because you are literally the problem, and we need to remove you from that. Everyone else is speaking very rationally. So when Danny says they're trying to get us to fight each other, it doesn't hold cold water because he is acting like a spoiled brat.
Yeah, we're not fighting each other.
Yeah.
You're fighting us, and we're right.
And then they do fight.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I thought the fighting choreography between Iron Fist and Daredevil was really well staged.
Yes.
And then there's that moment where, when Danny punches Luke Cage, it made me think of the scene in the first Avengers where Thor's hammer hits Cap's shield and like it just screws everything up. I was like, oh, okay, so this is the smaller scale version of that.
Yeah.
And this is a really important scene actually for Iron Fist, and particularly anyone who didn't like the Iron Fist series, because it basically shows that Iron Fist is capable enough that he can take on all of these other people single-handedly. And yeah, he loses, but it wasn't easy.
Right.
Like he holds his own. It's the same thing they kind of tried to do in the Avengers movie when Hawkeye, who's just the guy with the bow and arrow, turns evil. The idea was, here's this guy who can make trouble for all these superpowered Avengers, but they didn't really, they kind of airballed it.
Right.
Because he didn't really take on anyone else.
Yeah.
But here it actually works a little bit better, I would actually argue that, at least in its construct.
So Luke and Jessica are pissed to find out that no one told them about the hole under Midland Center, and they're right, because it's like, okay, I get Matt not talking about Elektra because that's a touchy subject and blah, blah, blah. But why would he have not mentioned the fucking hole before now?
But again, jumping a little ahead, they do mention how all this has only happened in a matter of days, because Jessica's like, oh, it's like weeks. So at what point would they have had the chance to? Maybe during the Chinese restaurant scene?
Because if
The Chinese restaurant scene took all night.
Yeah, but Jessica was also gone most of it.
But
so.
still, if they all meet at this building and they find there's shenanigans going in this building, then at some point you think they have a conversation. Oh, I've been here before. There's a giant chasm under the earth.
Fair. I mean, I will say at least, like logically speaking, when like crap is hitting the fan, going mile a minute, you might just neglect something. But yes,
I guess.
I know.
And I did like how after all of that buildup, oh, I'm not going to tell them about Elektra. Maybe you shouldn't tell them about Elektra. Elektra. By the way, I dated Elektra. Oh, that's awkward. You should have told us. Anyway, moving on. Right. Kind of a lot of buildup for a lot of nothing, really. They just had to just move past it.
She, meanwhile, wakes up at Matt's place and is like remembering things, and she goes through the costume trunk and finds her funeral card, and so that's all. Those tumblers are all clicking into place.
Visits her own grave.
Yeah.
And Alexandra brings her back. Alexandra has a speech. Alexandra makes a moment out of this. It's a good sort of attempt to sort of make the hand seem reasonable.
Yeah, like Bakudo has done in Iron Fist,
But at this point, we know they're evil ninjas who are trying to kill all of New York, so it doesn't really work on us.
Well,
and to the show's credit, it doesn't really work on Elektra either, as we learn by the end of this episode.
Well, we realize that Elektra's motivations are completely different from the hand.
Right. And she isn't an empty vessel. She does indeed have, if not her memories back, then certainly a huge chunk of her personality back. Should we skip to the end, or do we have something more to talk about?
Yeah, a couple things I want to.
Stick puts Sawani's head in a box and sends it to the hand.
Right.
Yeah, scene 7.
Now, did they? Here's the question: did they mail that, or is this
courier?
Yeah,
Courier.
Like a courier.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple moments.
They gave it to the Premium Rush guy.
There you go. Yeah. Oh, that'd be great. He'd be awesome with Defenders.
Matt and Jessica end up at his apartment, and he says sorry about the mess, and I love that she's like, you should see my place. And he pretty obviously figures that Elektra's been there, but he doesn't say anything because he's still like keeping that secret.
Right.
There's a couple things I liked too, where what was it? When Jessica says when they're looking for the brownstone, right? They're trying to find the house for her client, and she says, "Yeah, all these brownstones look the same," and she goes like, "Sorry." To Matt.
You know what's ironic though is I'm sorry. Just
and the other thing she says, he's like, "This is it," and she says, "Are you sure?" And he says, she's like, "Yeah, well, 92%." That's a lot.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, I remember thinking that line was funny when she says all these brownstones look alike, because she had just said that line, "You should see my place," and she didn't like catch herself and apologize for that. So I thought maybe she was just going to be cool and never talk about it and treat him like that's like not a thing. And it's like, no, it's a little inconsistent.
Also, this is like a dumb little thing, but I love that someone finally addressed how can Matt Murdock afford that place.
Yes.
Because I've been wondering that as someone who lives in a loft, albeit LA, but I know how expensive those are. So, and he's like, well, neon sign, but doesn't bother me.
And I think they've shown the neon sign.
They have. Yeah, but it was just, it's nice because sometimes it's like those little inconsistencies.
Yeah, well, because I think in movies about New York and Los Angeles, like I was just talking to somebody last night about how, in Heat, I'm sorry, Amy Brenneman works at a bookstore. There's no fucking way she can afford the place with the 747.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, you just kind of go with that.
So Jessica did her research on Matt really quickly, because again, it's only happened in a couple of days, and she learned his entire backstory and put it together and put together the emotional context.
But I mean, that's Jessica's real superpower. She's the world's greatest detective.
Is she?
Well, she's the world's greatest Googler.
Yeah,
anyway.
Yeah,
that's
right.
true.
Really good
She's a really
Googler.
good researcher.
There you go.
Yeah,
No,
there's
I
a
like
couple
it, though.
things in this episode, like when Matt's playing the piano and finds the plans that way. It's like, come on.
I know.
That's a little. I mean, okay,
Look, you
cute,
gotta-
but
Luckily, the
don't
second
have-
thing out of your mouth was a clue.
Well, we just needed him to play the.
But hey,
the
we
theme
got
song.
8 episodes.
I'm in the writer's room. I'm thinking to myself, okay, they need to go to his apartment or his house and get the plans. Are they just in a drawer? No, that's lame. How do they find them? I don't know. They're in the piano. I just watched Casablanca last night. Like, there you go. Like, it's not great, but whatever.
We also have to remember the overarching thing with this series is the law of conveniences.
yeah.
Everything is very convenient when you want it.
Well,
to
to
be.
quote Danny Rand, how obvious do you have to be? I guess
I'm the immortal
paraphrase it.
Iron Fist.
I do want some of that anesthesia incense, though. That sounds like, for when I'm
Yeah.
having insomnia or something. That'd be super handy.
So Luke Cage decides to
Andy, the hand.
to babysit Iron Fist, and they have
where I was
and they have
going.
more scenes together. They have more dialogue together, and they have time to sort of sit back and bond, which is actually really valuable dramatic real estate in a story which has there's like a time limit here. We got to do this thing. So having a moment where they can just interact and talk at this point in the series is actually pretty valuable and rare, and I think they do a really good job with it. But then it turns out Stick is actually decided, oh right, we could just kill Danny.
Yeah.
Right.
Why not?
Take him off the board.
Yeah.
Easy enough. We should have thought of this in the first
I
place.
kind of feel like that's what he was intimating earlier in the sewer scene was like take him out as in because that's always Stick's like MO. He's like let's just
Right.
kill people who get in our way.
Yeah.
mean,
He's a big picture.
Yeah, that's
Right,
what he taught Elektra.
Right, then Elektra comes in, knocks out Danny, Stick almost kills her, and then he hesitates, which is the thing that he's been bitching and mad about the whole time. Like, he hesitates too.
Then she delivers Danny just in time to keep Murakami and Alexandra from getting into a big rhubarb. And then when Alexandra tells her to go kill the defenders, she gets a sigh right in her.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it was nice to see the sigh return.
Finally.
Yes.
Yeah.
Finally. Yeah, and then she's like, you work for me now. I was
Yeah.
like,
No!
honestly, like, I didn't see that coming.
Yeah,
I'm
and that's like straight pulled out of the comic. Well, not that scene, but Elektra does take over the hand at one point.
Oh, it's
sort of.
Well, but then you find out it was actually like the scrolls. It was the
possessed.
Yeah,
Oh,
well,
right.
not possessed. No, just those aliens
was
that
that
can
the
shape.
secret?
Yeah,
right.
they
Secret Invasion
yeah,
story?
Secret Invasion. Yeah,
And
they
so-
replaced Elektra with a Skrull so she could take
Skrull,
over
a
the
super
hand, so the
Skrull.
Skrulls could take over the hand.
And then Elektra shows back up with a bunch of Marvel heroes that were on a spaceship.
Except
Comic books.
Except it was a spaceship full of only 2 superheroes and like 24 Skrulls.
Yeah.
So it's just Elektra and Mockingbird. It's important that we let them get back. Why?
And
Don't get me started on Secret
And Captain
Invasion.
Marvel was in there. Captain Marvel was in
Yeah.
there. Don't.
Let's,
I mean,
all right, let's not go down that
Yeah,
road.
please, this is
but,
a whole
but I'm just
thing.
saying, it's a
Secret
nice
Invasion.
nod.
You would
Yeah.
think Elektra would be too cool for that kind of crossover, but no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But no.
All right.
So this one, I mean, there's some decent fights in it, and we learn some interesting plot things, and as
Some decent lines.
as an Act 2 to Act 3 pivot, pretty good.
It's okay. I just hope they actually do something with it, as opposed to Elektra takes over the hand and it all ends the same way it would anyway. Like that would be really lame. So
Yeah.
I just hope it doesn't go.
Well, and we have to deal with the emotional impact of Stick getting stabbed.
Yes, that's true.
that's
Because he had a
huge.
lot of huge impact on a lot of
Yeah.
people.
All right, well, we will discuss that when we discuss episode 7.